wise man does at once what the fool does finally. Niccolò Machiavelli. What does it really mean to be untouchable? Is it about being powerful, always in control, never hurt or shaken? Not exactly. Being untouchable has nothing to do with acting tough or putting on a front. It has everything to do with mastering how the world works and how people really think. Machiavelli saw the truth behind human behavior centuries ago. He understood that kindness without boundaries invites manipulation, that trust without caution invites betrayal, that emotions, while human, often get in the way of good judgment. His lessons weren't warm or comforting, they were brutally clear. But in that clarity is where real strength lives. To become untouchable, you don't need to be cruel. You don't need to be feared for the sake of ego. You need to be strategic, calm under pressure, emotionally disciplined, aware of your value and unwilling to trade your peace for approval. You must stop reacting to everything and start calculating what's worth your energy. This is not about playing games. It is about not letting yourself be played. It is about knowing when to stay quiet, when to walk away, and when to act with finality. It is about staying centered in chaos and never letting your need to be liked cost you your power. Machiavelli didn't give instructions for a perfect life. He gave tools to survive and lead. If you use them well, you won't just be respected, you'll be untouchable. Stick with me, let's explore deeper. Number 1. Never confuse goodness with power. Let that sit for a second. We grow up being told that if you're a good person, good things will happen to you. That if you're kind, honest, and fair, life will reward you. But step into the real world and you start to notice something different. Some of the kindest people you know get overlooked, pushed around, or taken advantage of. Meanwhile, people who aren't particularly good seem to win, stay on top, or keep control of the room. Why? Because being good doesn't automatically make you powerful. In fact, without boundaries, strategy, or backbone, goodness becomes a tool others use against you. Think about that friend who's always helping everyone, always saying yes, always bending to keep the peace. Most people like them, but very few respect them. Why? Because their goodness is predictable and safe. You know they won't push back. You know they won't punish bad behavior. So what stops someone from taking advantage? Nothing. Now picture someone who is kind, but not soft. They're respectful, but they don't tolerate disrespect. They help others, but they know when to say no. They don't just give, they demand fairness. That kind of person doesn't just get liked, they get remembered. They don't just survive, they lead. Why? Because they've learned that power doesn't lie in being nice, it lies in being balanced. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this long before it became obvious in modern life. He warned that people do not fear goodness, they exploit it if it comes without consequence. Real power is having the ability to punish or protect, and choosing wisely when to do either. That doesn't mean you become a cold, selfish person. It means your goodness becomes a choice, not a default. It becomes strong, not weak. You don't need to walk around intimidating people, but you do need to let them know, through your actions and your boundaries, that you are not the one to be used. Power isn't loud, it's quiet. It shows up when someone crosses the line and realizes they just made a mistake. Being untouchable is not about being feared for the sake of ego. It's about being respected because people know you see clearly and act accordingly. So yes, be good. But never forget that goodness without power is just an open door for people who don't deserve to walk through. Number 2, understand that perception is more powerful than reality. This one truth can change how you move through the world. Most people think truth is what matters most. They believe that as long as they're honest, hardworking, and well-intentioned, things will naturally fall into place. But the world doesn't work that way. People don't respond to your truth. They respond to how they see you. And their version of you is shaped not by facts, but by feelings, bias, assumptions, and stories they've already told themselves. You could be the most qualified person in the room, but if you come across as unsure or invisible, you'll be skipped. You could be deeply kind and loyal, but if someone paints you as a threat, others will believe them before they get to know you. That's the power of perception. It's not about what is, it's about what people think is true. This is why some people win without trying too hard. They understand how to shape their image. They know how to walk into a room and take up space without saying too much. They speak with just enough confidence, dress with just enough intent, and let mystery do half the work. They're not always the smartest or the most talented, but they've mastered how they are seen. That alone gives them the advantage. Think of a lion. Even when it's resting, it commands respect. It doesn't have to roar to prove anything. People approach it carefully. That's perception at work. You want to carry yourself the same way. Calm, but calculated. Quiet, but alert. Present, but unpredictable. You don't need to fake anything, but you do need to be intentional. Control how people see you, and you won't have to explain yourself so often. You won't have to fight for basic respect. You won't need to convince anyone of your value. They will feel it before you speak. It doesn't mean living a lie. It means understanding that reality is filtered. Every single person views you through a lens. You might as well adjust the focus. Because when perception works in your favor, you win battles before they even begin. And in a world full of noise, mystery, and clarity are far more powerful than truth alone. Number 3. Detach emotionally before you act. It sounds simple, but in real life, it's one of the hardest skills to master. Most people are reactive. Someone disrespects them, they lash out. Someone disappoints them, they cut them off immediately. Someone praises them, they get attached. Every decision is a swing of the emotional pendulum, and that's exactly how people get used, trapped, or destroyed, by responding too quickly, too emotionally, without thinking. But look at the people who always seem calm under pressure. The ones who don't get dragged into drama, don't overreact, and never let others know what they're really feeling. They're not cold, they're not robotic, they're strategic. They've learned how to pause. They feel the emotion, but they don't act on it right away. That's the difference between reacting and responding. This doesn't mean you never feel anything. It means you don't let emotions make the decision for you. You let them rise, you watch them like clouds passing, and then you decide what action will actually serve you best. That is real strength. Imagine you just got an email that sounds disrespectful. Most people would instantly respond with anger or passive aggression, but someone who knows how to detach will read it, take a breath, step away, and come back with a reply that protects their position without exposing their emotions. That kind of person stays in control. They don't lose leverage. They don't give anyone the power to rattle them. Machiavelli would say that the moment you let emotion guide you, you give someone else the steering wheel. That's why people who stay calm are harder to manipulate. You can't guilt them into a yes. You can't bait them into a fight. You can't flatter them into trusting you. They see through the surface because their feelings aren't blinding their judgment. When you detach emotionally, you become someone people can't play. You respond on your terms. You act with purpose, not pressure. That doesn't make you heartless. It makes you disciplined. So the next time something upsets you or excites you, do not react right away. Sit with it. Think it through. Give yourself the gift of a pause. That one small space between emotion and action is where your power lives. And the people who master that space, they become untouchable. Number 4, master the art of strategic silence. It is one of the quietest forms of power, yet one of the most effective. In a world where everyone is oversharing, over-explaining, and constantly trying to be heard, silence stands out. It makes people lean in, it makes people uncomfortable, and more importantly, it makes people think. Most people speak to fill space. They want to be liked. They want to be understood. They want to prove something. But in trying to be transparent, they give everything away. Their emotions, their intentions, their fears. Once someone knows how you think, they know how to control you. But when you speak less, people start to wonder. They begin to study your expressions. They question your thoughts. They build their own stories about you. This is where the real power lives. Not in what you say, but in what you choose not to say. Think about someone you know who never really reacts loudly. They listen more than they speak. They answer questions without over-explaining. They never fully show their hand. You feel the need to impress them or even prove yourself to them without knowing exactly why. That's the effect of strategic silence. It creates mystery. It creates value. In business, in relationships, in everyday life, silence gives you the upper hand. When you do speak, people pay more attention. When you walk away from an argument instead of fighting to be right, it makes others feel unsure. That uncertainty can be far more powerful than any well-crafted speech. Machiavelli understood that when people cannot predict you, they become cautious. They do not act recklessly. They hesitate. And in hesitation, you gain time, space, and control. This is not about being cold or distant, it is about being calculated. You are not avoiding connection, you are choosing your words with intention. You know when to speak and when to hold back. You understand that silence is not the absence of power, it is the storage of it. So next time you are tempted to explain yourself, defend your choices, or spill your emotions, try silence instead. Let people wonder. Let them project. Let them fear what they cannot define. Because once you master silence, your presence will say more than your words ever could. Number 5. Reward loyalty with purpose, not pity. This may sound harsh, but it is one of the clearest truths about power, leadership, and influence. Loyalty is not something you keep by constantly giving. It is something you build by making people feel valuable, not pitied. The moment people feel like you're keeping them around out of obligation, not because they matter, their loyalty starts to fade. Think of loyalty as a currency. It has value when it flows in both directions. If you keep rewarding someone just because they've been around, but they're no longer adding anything, you're not leading, you're babysitting. And in the long run, they'll either grow resentful or lazy. Loyalty without purpose becomes dead weight. Now flip the situation. Imagine someone who feels like their role matters. They are trusted with responsibility. Their ideas are heard. Their growth is tied to your growth. Suddenly, their loyalty strengthens, not because you're nice, but because they see a future with you. They stay loyal because staying loyal benefits them too. That is how people like Machiavelli thought. Keep your circle useful, not just familiar. If someone is loyal to you, don't just reward them with comfort. Reward them with purpose. Give them something to protect. Let them feel like your success is theirs too. When people feel they are contributing to something bigger than themselves, their loyalty becomes deeper and harder to break. This also protects you from manipulation, because not everyone who stays close is loyal. Some people linger to collect favors. They remind you of what you owe them. They expect special treatment not because they're useful now, but because they were useful back then. That is not loyalty. That is quiet entitlement. And the longer you feed it, the more power they take from you. True loyalty is not emotional dependence. It is mutual investment. You must learn to reward those who grow with you, not those who just stay around you. When you do, your circle becomes sharper, faster, and more aligned. So be generous, but never out of guilt. Appreciate people, but keep their loyalty tied to movement and meaning. Because loyalty built on purpose becomes unstoppable. Loyalty built on pity eventually turns into resentment. Number 6. Know when to burn the bridge and salt the earth. This is not advice for the faint-hearted. It is for people who understand that not every connection is worth preserving, and not every conflict ends with a peaceful handshake. Sometimes, the cleanest move is the final one, the one with no way back. Forgiveness sounds noble, mercy sounds wise, but in the real world, these things only work when the other person has something to lose, or when peace keeps your position intact. If someone crosses a line that threatens your stability, your reputation, or your long-term goals, a polite "let's move on" is not a strategy. It is a risk. There are people who don't just disagree with you, they undermine you, quietly, over time. They smile to your face but chip away at your name when you're not in the room. These are the people who test how much disrespect you'll tolerate. If you let it slide once, they push further. If you tolerate it twice, they treat your silence as permission. And before you know it, you've given them the space to destroy you from the inside. That's when you burn the bridge and make sure nothing grows back. This doesn't mean you react emotionally. It means you act with finality. You cut off access, you stop explaining, you stop negotiating, you stop allowing their name to orbit your world. That level of decisiveness sends a message not just to them, but to everyone watching. You do not reward betrayal with second chances. Machiavelli would agree. Mercy has a cost. If showing kindness allows your enemies to regroup, they will use your forgiveness as a weapon later. Mercy makes sense when it buys loyalty, fear, or peace. But if it buys time for someone to strike again, you've traded strength for sentiment. We're taught that burning bridges is immature, but in truth, knowing which bridges to burn and when is a sign of leadership. Some connections were only useful during one season of your life. When they turn toxic, holding onto them becomes emotional debt, and debt will always weigh you down. So do not be afraid to end something fully. Some people need access removed, not reduced, because weak ties over time are not harmless, they are slow poison, and strong empires fall when rot is ignored. Number 7. Make usefulness your armor. In a world driven by self-interest, being liked is optional. Being needed is not. People often waste time trying to be perfect, trying to smooth out their flaws, be universally admired, or avoid criticism. But here's the truth. Perfection does not protect you. Usefulness does. The more valuable you are to others, the more they will look past your imperfections. You don't have to be flawless. You just have to be necessary. Think about the people in your life. You probably tolerate quirks or even annoying traits in those who consistently come through for you. They deliver results, they solve problems, they show up when it counts. That usefulness buys them grace. Now flip the script. The moment someone becomes more of a liability than an asset, patience runs out. It doesn't matter how nice they are or how long you've known them. If they're not useful, they become replaceable. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. Power is not built on charm. It is built on strategic value. The moment your presence creates more opportunities than your absence, you become difficult to betray. People might not love you. They might not even fully trust you, but they will keep you close because losing you would cost them something. This is how real security is built. Not by making people like you, but by making sure your absence would create a noticeable gap. Whether you are leading a team, navigating a friendship, or building a business, the same principle applies. The more problems you solve, the more leverage you hold. Usefulness is a kind of armor. It doesn't mean you let people exploit you. It means you design your life in a way that keeps you needed, not just wanted. You specialize in something. You offer value others depend on. You become the person who holds the glue, the insight, or the key. Even ambition and ruthlessness are tolerated when they come packaged with results. People will excuse a sharp edge if it cuts through their problems, but no one forgives dead weight, so don't obsess over being perfect. Be useful, sharpen a skill, solve real problems, deliver under pressure. That is what makes you indispensable. And when betrayal becomes expensive, loyalty becomes a bargain. Number 8. Study the weaknesses people hide. Everyone wears a mask. Some wear confidence, some wear charm, some wear coldness. But underneath all of it, everyone has soft spots. The key is not to listen to what people say, it's to watch what they try to hide. No one will walk into a room and announce their insecurity. No one will admit they feel threatened by you. They'll cover it up with loud opinions, passive compliments, or quiet resistance. You need to learn how to spot the difference between what someone presents and what they're protecting. That manager who always brags about their accomplishments, they're probably deeply insecure about their relevance. The friend who's always praising your success but never shows up when you need support, that's likely envy wrapped in politeness. The person who gets angry the moment they feel challenged, that's fear disguised as dominance. This is where power lives, not in physical strength or shouting the loudest, but in silent observation. If you know what people fear, what they crave, and what they lack, you can move around them with precision. You can win loyalty by feeding the part of them that feels ignored. You can break down resistance by speaking to the part of them that feels afraid. Machiavelli understood that control begins with understanding. If you can see what others don't show, you're already 2 steps ahead. You'll know who is bluffing. You'll know who is pretending to support you. You'll know whose compliments are genuine and whose silence is loaded. This doesn't mean you become manipulative. It means you become wise. You stop taking people at face value. You stop reacting to their words and start responding to their patterns. When you do this, you stop falling for appearances and start moving based on insight. You do not need to use this awareness to harm people. In fact, some of the strongest alliances are built when you show someone you see their weaknesses and you choose not to exploit them. That kind of restraint builds deep trust. But when you're facing a threat or betrayal, knowing where their armor cracks gives you the upper hand. Most people move blindly through social dynamics. They only see the surface. If you can read what's underneath, you don't just survive, you dominate, quietly, intelligently, and with precision. Number 9. Never allow others to define your character. Because if you don't take control of your own story, someone else will write it for you. And they'll write it in a way that serves them, not you. Let's be real. Reputation is rarely based on truth. It's shaped by perception, gossip, assumptions, and people's personal agendas. It's not about who you really are, it's about who people think you are. And that version of you can be shaped in minutes by one rumor, one conversation, one moment taken out of context. If you allow others to define your character, you give them the power to limit your opportunities, your influence, and your future. You hand them the microphone, and they will use it however they please. Maybe they'll call you too ambitious, too emotional, too quiet, too intense, whatever fits their comfort zone. And if you don't speak up, those labels stick. Look at history, politics, the workplace, or even your own life. The people who thrive are not always the nicest or the most talented. They're the ones who control their narrative. They're intentional about what they show, what they say, and how they respond. They let their actions speak, but they also speak for themselves when it counts. They don't sit silently while someone else reshapes their identity. Machiavelli would tell you that your image is a tool. If you fail to sharpen it, protect it, and wield it with purpose, it becomes a weapon against you. Your enemies will distort it, your rivals will redefine it, and people will believe what's repeated the loudest, not what's true. So what does this look like in real life? It means correcting the story when someone misrepresents you. It means being aware of how your words, actions, and presence are being interpreted. It means building a consistent identity so no one else can easily twist it. It means accepting that silence is not always strength. Sometimes it's surrender. Your character is the core of who you are, but your reputation is what opens or closes doors. When you own your narrative, people are forced to meet you on your terms. And once that happens, you stop playing defense and start shaping the field. Define yourself clearly, or prepare to live in the version of you someone else created. Number 10. Outgrow the need for validation. It sounds empowering, but it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do, because deep down most people are addicted to approval. Whether it's a like, a compliment, a nod of agreement, or just someone saying you did good, we crave that signal that we matter, that we're enough. But here's the catch. The more you need it, the more you become controlled by those who give it. When someone can feed or starve your sense of worth with a simple reaction, they own a piece of you. And if enough people own enough pieces, you lose yourself without even noticing. This is why people compromise who they are. They stay quiet when they should speak. They overperform just to be seen. They shape-shift to fit into rooms that would never accept their real self, all for a drop of validation. And once you start relying on that, you start doing things not because they're right, but because they're rewarded. But untouchable people? They move differently. They act from conviction, not applause. Their confidence comes from doing the work, not being seen doing it. They are not easily seduced by praise or broken by criticism. They understand that applause fades fast, and chasing it keeps you running in circles, performing for an audience that's never really satisfied. Think about the people who have real presence, the ones who don't care if you like them, but somehow you respect them anyway. They're not cold, they're just free. Free from the trap of needing to be liked, free from the fear of being misunderstood. They know who they are, and that internal clarity makes them immune to manipulation. Machiavelli would say that rulers who crave the approval of the people are the easiest to topple. Why? Because they'll do anything to stay liked, even betray their own principles. A ruler who does not fear disapproval, however, is much harder to move. In everyday life, this applies just the same. If your identity depends on the reactions of others, you're never in control. But when you learn to validate yourself, when your self-worth is grounded in something solid, your discipline, your values, your work, you become untouchable. Let the world watch, or don't. Either way, you'll keep building. Because you no longer need their eyes to know you're standing tall. Number 11. Make chaos your natural habitat, because the world doesn't stay calm for long. Plans fall apart, people flip, markets crash, relationships shift. The ones who survive and rise are not the ones who avoid chaos. They're the ones who walk into it calmly like they've been there before. Most people only perform well when things are stable, when the room is quiet, when everything is predictable. But life rarely gives you those conditions for long. The moment things get messy, pressure, uncertainty, betrayal, failure, most people freeze or fall apart. They panic, react emotionally, and lose their grip. That's where you separate yourself. You have to become someone who stays grounded when everything else is shaking. When others are running in circles or reaching for blame, you are still thinking, still watching, still planning. Not because you enjoy the chaos, but because you've trained for it. You've stopped expecting things to go smoothly. You've accepted that chaos is not the enemy, it's the arena. And if you can stay sharp in that space, you win. Think of a fire breaking out in a building. Everyone screams and runs. But there's always one person who walks, scans the exits, and leads others out. That person didn't become calm in the moment. They were already built for it. Chaos just revealed who they already were. Machiavelli understood that power is not just gained through strategy and peace. It's seized in moments of disorder. When the structure collapses, the person who doesn't collapse with it becomes the new center of gravity. People instinctively follow whoever seems unshaken. Calmness becomes influence. Strategy becomes leadership. To get there, you must stop clinging to comfort. Comfort is where mediocrity hides. Push yourself to make decisions under pressure. Train your mind to slow down when everything speeds up. Learn to observe without rushing to act. When you stop fearing chaos, you start using it. Chaos gives you cover. While others are distracted, emotional, or reactive, you can move quietly. You can take control while everyone else is just trying to survive. So don't wish for calm, prepare for the storm. And when it hits, don't flinch. Move like the ground is steady. Because for you, it is. That is how you become untouchable in a world that never stays still. Number 12. Cultivate unpredictability with precision. Not by being chaotic or impulsive, but by being deliberately unreadable. People crave patterns. They want to know how you think, how you'll react, how far you'll go. The moment they figure you out, they start planning around you. They learn which buttons to push, which lines they can cross, and how much they can get away with. Predictability becomes permission. But when you're hard to read, everything shifts. People second-guess themselves, they hesitate, they tread carefully. That hesitation is where your power grows. Being unpredictable doesn't mean being irrational. It means breaking patterns on purpose. Sometimes you forgive, sometimes you cut off, sometimes you're generous, other times you're cold. You give just enough to keep people interested, but not enough to make you easy to map. Your unpredictability keeps you in control, because no one knows what side of you they're going to get. And that uncertainty makes people nervous. Think of the most powerful characters in fiction or real life, the ones who keep their cards close. You never know what they're really thinking, what they're truly capable of, or what they'll do next. That tension creates respect, sometimes even fear, not because they're loud or aggressive, but because their silence holds weight. Machiavelli believed that it's better to be feared than loved, if you can't be both. But the deeper truth is, you don't have to show fear or kindness directly. If people believe you're capable of either, they will tread lightly. The power lies in their uncertainty. This also protects you from manipulation. People can only play games with you if they know the rules you follow. But when your reactions can't be easily predicted, the games fall apart. Your unpredictability becomes a shield. It makes it too risky to challenge you head-on. So don't be loud, be deliberate. Don't be reactive. Be unreadable. You are not trying to confuse everyone. You are teaching them not to assume they know you, because the moment they stop assuming, they stop taking liberties. Keep your emotions private. Switch your rhythm now and then. Say less than you think. Move in silence, then strike with clarity. Let people feel like they're always one step behind, even when they think they're ahead. That's how you cultivate power without showing your full hand. And that's how you become untouchable. In final words, he who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command. Niccolò Machiavelli. What does it truly take to become untouchable in a world where power is subtle, loyalty is conditional, and perception often outweighs reality? It's not about being feared or loved. It's not about being ruthless or soft. It's about understanding human nature at its core and knowing how to navigate it without losing yourself in the process. Machiavelli never promised fairness. He offered clarity. He showed what actually works when emotions are stripped away and strategy takes the wheel. To become untouchable, you must stop playing by rules that were written to keep you predictable. You learn to trust with intention, speak with control, act with distance, and move with precision. You stop giving people easy access to your emotions. You stop explaining your every thought. You stop hoping that being good is enough. You begin to build quiet power, power that does not scream for attention but grows in silence. Power that does not depend on popularity, but on your ability to make necessary decisions without guilt. Power that protects your name, your peace, and your future. This is not a path for everyone. It requires discipline, self-awareness, a high tolerance for discomfort. But once you start living this way, you'll notice something. People treat you differently. They respect your presence. They watch what they say. They come correct. Not because you're loud, but because they feel the weight of someone who is not easily shaken. That is what being untouchable really means. Not that no one can touch you, but that no one can move you without your permission. Thank you for watching and see you in another episode.